Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Experiences with Experity. We are way into this campaign, guys. We are having a really good time filming for you. Today's episode is actually a really special one. We get to sit down with our very own Abbie. She's going to be in the spotlight today. Um, Not everyone knows this, but Abbie's actually had a huge amount of experience in the recruitment background, and this month we're focusing on recruitment. So we wanted to kind of touch on something quite close to Experity. What's really exciting is obviously recently she was on that flip side of the process, recruiting for Experity. Hence Melissa and I are here. So we just wanted to get her thoughts on a few of these things. We're going to dive into what it was like for her, what she learned, and how her background in recruitment kind of shaped the way that she approached this process differently. Because I think definitely being on the flip side of it, we definitely felt like this was different. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. It's not often you get such a personal take on something that so many businesses, I think, are struggling with at the moment. So that being said, Abbie, you're in the spotlight today. How are you feeling? You okay?
I'm nervous. This takes a slightly different angle to what we're used to
Absolutely.
with these episodes. So I feel like there's more pressure on today than usual. But no, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to sharing the story and talking it through with you guys, and also hearing your perspective on it, because we haven't actually revisited this since it happened over 6 months ago now. So
Wow.
yeah, it's been a bit crazy, hasn't it?
Yeah, we're putting
Definitely.
everything on the table.
Yeah, I mean, now's the time that people can really learn whether we're walking the walk or just talking the talk, really, isn't it? This is the episode. If people want to find out whether we actually are
This
doing
is
what we're
it.
doing, yeah, you're going to be able to read between the lines here and really figure it out.
This is the one. So that being said, first question, let's kind of kick off with your personal journey. You've been on both sides of recruitment. Do you want to kind of talk us through how you've had that experience and what your past kind of looked like before Experity?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had an early years career in marketing and loved the creative side of it, and almost felt like there was a level missing in marketing in terms of being able to build closer relationships with marketing. You're doing a lot of storytelling, you're doing a lot of creative stuff, working with brands. But recruitment allowed me to get really up close and personal with people and build really good relationships, whether that's with a candidate, whether that's with a hiring manager, or with a business in general. And I'll be honest, I fell into recruitment, a lot of people do, and it was originally a 50-50 marketing recruitment split. I was going to do some stuff, going to do loads of things online, and then I was going to learn about recruitment. And within a matter of weeks, I was doing like 100% recruitment, and the marketing was just as and when in between. But I loved it. I loved it. I started recruiting senior risk, reg, and compliance professionals in the city, mainly for some of the biggest financial services organisations, and some really senior roles in that area. So completely thrown in the deep end as well, and learning to deal with that highly competitive, quick turnaround. There was obviously like the permanent side of the business, and then you had contractors where you had to fill seats quite quickly.
Yeah.
It was very fast paced, very intense. And if you're in risk and compliance in financial services, you know your worth, okay? You are speaking to recruiters all the time, you know your situation. So little old me's come in there and absolutely just kind of come in left field and just wants to chat with everybody and build relationships. So it was quite a big dunk in the deep end. But it was great, such a big learning curve. And you know what? I really enjoyed it. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed going into the city. I enjoyed filling some of those great roles, building relationships with people. And it just lit a fire that I didn't really know needed lighting, to be honest. And I was with that business just under 5 years. We went through peaks and troughs of loads of different things. We scaled up, we scaled down. There was only two of us in the business at one point. and then we ramped up and scaled up again, and it was right over kind of the COVID cusp. So when COVID hit and the first lockdown happened, all of the corporate clients basically put a headcount freeze and a hiring freeze on all of their roles. So overnight, all of our work turned off, and it was absolutely chaotic and a nightmare. And we didn't really know what to do. But what we did know is that we didn't want to keep doing the rat race of constantly trying to compete with 20 other agencies to fill the same position. And it was, you were constantly working on time. So you were working really long days, and, you know, on your days off, you were making sure that candidate still had what it needed to keep moving and keep pressing forward. And it didn't really align to the values of how we were running the business and how we were growing it. We were building really good relationships, we weren't transactional, and it just wasn't being seen in the type of business model that we were running. So we then pivoted the business completely, like a 180 pivot in lockdown. And by the end of the first lockdown, we basically relaunched the market with a brand new business, brand new offering, which was dedicated recruitment teams for scaling businesses in financial professional services and a number of other industries we ended up supporting in that as well. Technology, manufacturing, engineering were some other industries that we ended up having clients in. But that type of business was much more aligned. So we were partnering with firms that wanted to grow and scale, didn't have the internal resource to do that, but we could really understand their culture, their values, what they wanted to achieve, and we were being able to find the right hires for them, not just put a bum on a seat. And that's actually, you know, really how we end up still doing things today, partnering with the right people based on value alignment, based on all of those other things. And that's obviously how we came to meet each other, Shiv, through my journey in that side of the career. So that was really nice. The business took off. We had to hire so many people during that period of time. I'd gone from being like a recruitment consultant to by the time I left, I was the operations director of that business, and it was amazing and I loved it, and I worked a lot of hours, but I felt like I was really connected with what we were doing, how we were helping our clients. We helped companies double in size in some cases. We helped businesses get to a point where they were then ready for acquisition and get them to a really sturdy place. We helped support retention initiatives and employee engagement initiatives by proxy of what we were doing and how visible we were in the business, how close we remained to people. And it just was everything that I'd hoped it would be and more. It wasn't easy, particularly hiring in COVID, people's changing priorities, needs for remote working and so on, but it was really rewarding. So when I came to leave that business, which was a very difficult time for me, I knew that I wanted to go and do something that gave me the passion and the fire that had given me. And I knew that when it came to recruiting my own team, that I would want to make sure that I was giving the absolute best experience aligned to what I wanted to achieve with the business as well. So it held me in really good stead for scaling Experity, really. That was a very long-winded answer to your question.
But it set you up because something that really stood out there was the fact that you said that you stopped kind of recruiting for bums on seats, but trying to find the right people to fit. And I actually saw that happen where when we crossed paths before, people are still there because it works. And when you find, I think being on the flip side of that, when you find it as an employee, you find the right place, you find the right culture, you find the right fit, you're not going to go anywhere, and you love your line manager and you love the work and all of those things align. And I think that's something that I watched you do, and you were so good at doing it. And that kind of leads me to where we are right now, which is all of that experience that you had and all of those, I guess, all of those scenarios that you were put in, or you watched those people develop throughout the business. You weren't just, okay, you're recruited now, see you later, hands off. That was different, something different that I watched you do. And that kind of felt really warm, because when we joined Experity, when I joined, I felt that too. So let's take it now to when you started to think about recruiting for Experity. What kind of led you to make that decision that you know that you needed more help is going to be my first question. And then secondly, how did you kind of go about that? And what did you want to do differently when you were like, I've got to do this, I need help, but I need to do it in the right way?
It's a good question. I'll be honest, I was in denial that I probably needed someone for a long time.
Yeah.
When you have a passion and you know exactly how to do something and you can do it really efficiently, you think, oh, well, it's going to take me twice as long to train somebody up to then be able to do what I do, and I might as well just do it myself and save the money and save the aggro of like having to go and hire and do that, and because it is a lot of investment for somebody.
Yeah.
And not even just the financial or the time investment, but actually the investment in sharing that and trusting other people, I think was the big thing.
Big thing. Yeah.
When I started the business, it wasn't a concept that many people understood, and that's why I started it. In fact, when I left the last business, I went out and spent, a little while looking at jobs that I felt answered the questions and filled the gap that I could see in the market, and I couldn't see any, which is why I then went to go and set up the business, because I couldn't find what I was looking for. And actually then having to open yourself up, be vulnerable, and share that with other people and trust that they're gonna look after your baby and have the same investment and passion about it as you do is a really difficult thing. So I guess I'd put it off for a while. And also, when you get different contracts in and the business gets to a certain point, you kind of have to make that call, like, do we outsource? Do we try and bring people in-house? How's this scalable business going to work? And up until that point, I'd been outsourcing part of the work, which was fine and functional, but it didn't give me that ability to scale in the way that I'd hoped it would. So I knew that I probably did need to bring it in-house, and it took me a fair few months to get comfortable with that. But I think because I was open about, I knew roughly what help I needed, but I was open-minded about what that looked like. I think that probably helped in a way. Sometimes it's really important to get super clear on what you're looking for and be exact. And I would tell 90% of my clients that that is the case. But in this case, me staying open-minded about what that looked like allowed me to probably see a good range of candidates and be able to make the decisions that I ended up going on to make. So yeah.
Definitely. Would you say that that's quite a common mistake that maybe companies do make, actually, that they tend to recruit for the role that they need right in that moment rather than for the role that's actually going to be scaling with the business? Because I think with Experity, obviously we're still in the early stages of the business, but we know that it's scaling, and it's scaling like fast. So really, when you were looking at the role, I think it'd be fair to say that you were looking at it not just for that moment but for the future. And I think it's probably something that people quite often make as a mistake. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true that you say that. One of the things that I saw a big shift in when we were recruiting, say in risk and compliance, versus when we pivoted, had a new business model, and then was scaling that. One of the big conversations that you'd have with hiring managers, or even if I think about what I'm having with the business, is are you hiring for your culture now, or are you hiring for culture growth? It's culture fit or culture growth. And your culture might be something now, but when you're double the size, or when you're across more locations, or when you've got a bigger team to manage, the culture is going to be shifting. You're going to have little micro cultures all over the place, and you've got to be hiring somebody with that mindset, that growth mindset, to be able to go, oh, actually this person's going to be great for what we're going to need in the future rather than what we need now. And I think if you're a hiring manager that has a closed mindset or a fixed mindset, you're just thinking about what's in front of you. What do I need to hire to fill this need right now? And we find that a lot in corporate hiring is there's a gap, we need to fill the gap. And actually the benefit of some of the smaller or medium-sized businesses, or businesses that are being led by somebody that's quite forward thinking, is that they can think about the next few steps. Where do we need the business to go? B, what are we potentially going to need? And how is that going to fit into that today? So Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying there, Melissa, and that's something we talk about with our clients even now.
And I think that's something that you brought up to us. I think it's fair to say as well, like I'm sure you said the same, Shiv, like, what do you want from your career? And I remember having a conversation with you where you said, like, some people want to do the role and that's what they want to do, and growth isn't really important to them. Like, some people want to grow and develop with their role. Like, what that was part of the interview conversation that we had. And I think that really stood out to me, because it wasn't you saying one was right or one was wrong. It was just you understanding what that role was going to do for the business. And actually, I think where that really stood out is, it might not be relative for Experity, but where it could be really good for other companies is if you have a role that just needs to be that role and there's not really going to be much progression, actually you don't want someone to be there that's going to be hungry for more and hungry for that progression, because that's going to cause problems in your recruitment in the future as well. But vice versa, if you're recruiting for a role that you eventually want to go into a management position and they're just wanting to do that role, which is absolutely fine, then there's a gap there. And I think that was a conversation that really stood out to me when you did the interview process. I don't know about you, Shiv, but
Yeah, same for me. Yeah, it was
yeah,
something I'd never been asked before, and I think that was quite it felt like you valued already me and you wanted to hear me, and you don't often get that. And I think coming from a corporate world, previously, I can't remember if I was even asked how I was, let alone,
yeah,
so that's different. That was a shift we felt definitely on this side, which is nice to hear that, you're clear we're doing something right. So then let's take it just back one step. When you decided that you needed to then recruit for Experity, what did you decide to do in order to push that job out or that role out? Because it was only one role and there's two of us. So let's have a chat about
yeah.
that.
Yeah, whether that went as I planned it, definitely not. Um, but when I knew that I needed to hire, I knew that there were some tasks, like I said, that I did really need in the business. So I kind of had a bit of a rough spec on the types of things that I know I needed that person to do, but I wasn't wedded to them absolutely needing to be the expert in knowing how to do all of those things. I just needed somebody to be willing to learn it and grow and be comfortable doing those types of tasks. So I created a job advert. There's a difference between a job description and a job advert. So a job description is like the full kit and caboodle, what you're doing in the job, what the job entails, all of the bullet points of every little task, every little detail that you need. But a job advert is, why should you come here? Like, why pick this job over something else completely? And that was what was really switching up for me, was actually I don't need all of the detail. I need to know why somebody would, and I need to be able to communicate why someone would want to come and work here rather than anywhere else. So I started to put together a bit of that job advert after I'd had the spec. I usually do the job description first and then I create the advert from there. And then I went and put it out on LinkedIn. I had quite a network on LinkedIn that I knew would be comfortable sharing and engaging and advocating for what I was doing on there. But one of the pivotal things that I knew that I needed to do was actually get on video and share with people what was happening in the business, why I was hiring, what I thought the role would look like, the perfect type of person that I thought could come into the role. And the biggest thing for me was, people were going to be investing in me and my business. And if they didn't like what they saw in the video, then they weren't going to apply. But I needed them to know that they could see and hear my passion. They could feel like they could connect or relate or be part of something that I was building. They could see and invest in the values that we were growing and building, and they could see themselves in that. But the big element of that video was also to then talk about how open-minded I was about this role. So it didn't matter to me that this was a full-time role. I didn't want somebody full-time. I wanted somebody that was creative, right, and was happy to be flexible, and I was going to give the same amount of flexibility back. because I was nervous and I didn't know what to expect, and I'd rather have a flexible opportunity and somebody that came in and cared about the business and did half the hours,
Yeah.
rather than just filling the gap because I need somebody to do X amount of hours each week. So the video really allowed me to communicate that well with loads of people. And I got such a big uptake on that video. I was getting people obviously message me directly who knew me. I was getting loads of applications through the LinkedIn job that I posted. People were emailing me, like loads of different forms of people showing interest in the video, and therefore then the job like started flooding in. So that was something that I did a bit different to other jobs.
Yeah, I loved seeing that. I don't know about you, Melissa, but I saw on LinkedIn. So
Yeah.
I saw the
Yeah.
video and then immediately went to messages because obviously I knew you, and popped up and was like, Abbie, I don't know if this is going to work because I've just moved country, but what do you think? Like, is it worth me even sending my CV through? And you're like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Like, let's talk about when I can speak to you. And that was really nice because I did see that the engagement it had was like, I think it was only a day after you had posted it, and it was nuts. I was like, I've got to get in there quick. I've got to get in there quick. But also the way that you described the role and the person you wanted in the role, I was like, that's me. Like, she's literally describing me. So I would be doing myself an injustice and not saying, hey. So that's where it came from. But I saw it on LinkedIn because I was like scrolling, as you do when you're trying to find a job. And I don't know about you, Melissa. Was it the same for you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, obviously, I knew a bit about Experity anyway because we were on the
Yes.
accelerator program together. So I'd kind of come through that process with Abbie and kind of seen the business from there. And yeah, LinkedIn, also saw it on Instagram, took a screenshot and sent it to Sam. I mean, I don't know about you, Shiv, but if it wasn't for the flexibility and your openness of the role, Abbie, I don't think either me or Shiv would be here today. Like, I think if you would have been set with what you wanted in the role,
Absolutely.
neither of us would be in the company today. Like, I wasn't even looking for a job. Like, I didn't even want to get a job. I didn't even want to work for someone or do that. It was only because I knew Experity's story, and it was only because Abbie, I knew what she wanted from the role from the video that she put out, and well, you put out, sorry, Abbie, talking about you like you're not here, but and the LinkedIn post that I was like, okay, well, maybe I sent it a screenshot to my husband, and then we had a conversation that night, and he was like, well, just message her. And I think I popped you a voice note, Abbie, and was like, not sure if this is even for me. Can we have a call? And we had like a bit of a call before just to have that conversation because, yeah, I wasn't even looking for a role. It wasn't on my radar at all to start working again. So yeah, a bit crazy.